Last week, the BBC made the announcement that they are officially withdrawing from Stonewall and its diversity programme, and this is something we really need to talk about, and I also want to highlight something which Stonewall said in response to this news, because it's all sadly very indicative of where we are as a culture right now. Now, the BBC's decision to cut ties with Stonewall shouldn't come as any great surprise to those who've been paying attention. This is just the latest in a long line of events that have a very clear trajectory going back to last October when employees were discouraged from attending Pride events. Shortly after that, they nominated J.K. Rowling's transphobic essay for an award, and even at that point I was kind of willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, to a point at least, because the BBC are under a lot of pressure to cave in to hateful ideology, and with the constant calls on social media to defund the BBC, they kind of have to try and appease all sides. And this is still very much the case today. Indeed, the current ideological climate is something I'll be getting onto later in this video. However, in light of the whole recent debacle involving Lily Cade, I now feel quite comfortable in saying that the BBC is a transphobic organisation. For those that don't know, last month the BBC published an article which cultivated the narrative that gay cis women are being pressured into unwanted sex by trans women, in doing so furthering the harmful notion that trans women are in fact predatory men using their identity as a way to get closer to women. Yeah, we'll unpack that one more in a moment. Now, it's one thing to be impartial when it comes to hatred, but by publishing this article, the BBC is actively stoking the flames and encouraging discrimination. And the real stinger in the tail of all this is that one of the cis women interviewed in the article later went on a revolting tirade on her own separate blog, in which she literally calls for the deaths of trans people, no exaggeration or hyperbole. If you want to hear exactly what she wrote, then I recommend Vera Wild, aka Council of Geeks video, in which she reads out an excerpt from the manifesto. But yeah, severe trigger warning, and suffice to say, the fact that the BBC didn't immediately and publicly condemn her words is a serious black mark on the organisation. To their minimal credit, they did later quietly remove Cade's contribution to the article, but honestly this just comes across as dog whistling to those who share her disgusting views, which leads me on to the main point of this video, because I'm sure there are those who will argue that regardless of what Cade or others like her have said or done, the alleged danger to gay women is still valid. But that's exactly the point. Whenever transgender people are presented as sexual predators, it is almost always in bad faith. The idea that trans women are some kind of dangerous threat is not something I intend to spend any great length of time humouring or discrediting, because aside from the fact that cherry-picking individuals who've committed crimes from a marginalised group and using that to justify discrimination and denial of rights against said group is just a really shitty thing to do, it's exactly the same sort of rhetoric I've heard 100 times before, i.e. trans people will indoctrinate you, take away your rights, invade your spaces, hurt your children, and so on. These arguments exist purely for the sole purpose of validating hatred. It's precisely the same sort of fearmongering that has been deployed against numerous other marginalised groups in years gone by, ironically including the gay community, a fact which is not lost on Stonewall, who made this exact comparison in their tweet chain responding to the BBC's withdrawal. This provoked some interesting responses, ranging from those screaming false equivalency to some people actually trying to deny that homophobia ever existed. I guess because they're just that desperate to produce any sort of counter-argument in order to validate their bigotry. I mean, none of us like to believe we are the bad guy. Accepting that you hold views that are harmful and problematic to others is not easy, I get it. But if you're having to bend over backwards this much to justify your views, then surely it's time for a rethink. Because if you cannot see the similarities between homophobic and transphobic hate, then I really don't know what else I can say to you. The only difference is that discourse on trans rights is about 20 or 30 years behind. Those of you who follow me on Twitter will know that I don't hesitate when it comes to speaking out against transphobia, and some of you may wonder why that is. I mean, full disclosure, I am a cishet guy. I don't exactly have a stake in any of this, but I just believe it's the responsibility of any decent, compassionate human being to call out bigotry whenever they see it. And right now, transgender people are on the front line. If you are trans, you are the acceptable target. Even in the more progressive parts of the world, your very existence and basic rights are considered up for debate, and that is not okay. The fact an organisation like the BBC feel they can get away with actively platforming transphobia is not okay. If there's one thing I want everyone to take away from this video, it's that hatred always perpetuates and finds a new target. Currently that target is the transgender community, and it's time we recognise the patterns and stamp it out. I'm Midnight, and I just lost my train of thought.